Delicious tonic herb coffee every single morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope you all are doing amazing. Today we're going to be discussing the science of fat loss. So before I begin, let me just say anyone and everyone, y'all can request videos, send me your questions down in the comments section, and send me questions and things of that nature, feedback, through my DMs on Instagram. The best way to request YouTube videos is by sending me a message on my Instagram at Coach Wolfgang VL. I have a lot of subscribers that follow me there and send me questions and feedback on Instagram. Also, I do private consultations on my Instagram, by request through messages. So, with that out of the way, we're going to be discussing the science of fat loss, okay? And so fat loss is something that is, for whatever reason, highly controversial, like in the health communities these days. Again, it really is just dogma, bias, and everybody needs to separate themselves in order to make money and market themselves. You have people out there like he's not even a doctor, he's got a doctorate degree in chiropractic, like freaking Eric Berg or whatever, Dr. Eric Berg on YouTube. That guy, his thing is all insulin, it's the insulin, and then he has videos about why people in Asia can eat all this white rice and high carbs and still be thin. And it's like, it's just crazy, like the things people will say, and that they are so blind and they ignore just huge chunks of evidence that completely blindsides their theories. But anyway, I do own a lot of the low carb books like Gary Taubes and stuff, and I'm telling you right now, that is not how fat loss works. So anyway, and don't even get me started on the alkaline vegans. They're like, oh, you're fat because you have mucus rotting in your intestine. There's so much stupidity out here in like the health communities. So anyway, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you don't already know how it actually works. It's really basic. It's nothing fancy. Okay. I'll get comments in the comment section where people freak out at me when I say obvious stuff that is like legitimately proven, and this is not many things are proven, but this one has actually been shown in metabolic ward studies. I think it was 60 to 90 days where they legitimately showed in metabolic ward studies, it's the most tightly controlled type of study you can have, restricting calories will induce fat loss, okay, and just weight loss in general. And there is a huge difference between fat loss and weight loss, okay? You can lose 20 pounds of water in 1 week, and that's not necessarily like conducive to body composition goals. And you can lose you can lose up to 20 pounds of water weight in 1 week. That's a lot of weight that is not explained by fat loss, so keep that in mind. All right, so calories in versus calories out, okay, that is how fat loss works. The problem that people run into is they don't understand what that means, okay? So calories in is just the foods that you're eating, okay? It's the amount of calories that you're eating. And calories is basically just the measure of heat being burnt as a result of processing and metabolizing the energy you get from foods, to kind of put it simply, I guess. And it has, so anyway, basically, yeah. So first it starts with the food that you consume. Those are the calories in, okay? And then calories out is where people start to get freaky. So calories out can be related to the thermic effect of food. Okay, so this is where a calorie is pretty much not a calorie in a sense. You could, or you can make that case. So, for example, protein as a macronutrient, there are studies that show up to 2 times the caloric burn from metabolizing protein. Okay, and that's all protein in general. Okay, and when we say protein, we're talking about larger peptides. Okay, larger peptides. That's the first step in protein digestion and metabolism. Okay, protein gets broken down in the stomach from the enzyme pepsin and hydrochloric acid, stomach acid, breaks down the larger peptides into smaller peptides, and then it breaks it down further into amino acids, which are absorbed through your intestine. And then those individual amino acids all have different end products, different responsibilities in the body. Tyrosine turns into dopamine and thyroid hormone. What else? Histidine, I believe, turns into histamine later on. Glycine, for example, an amino acid you get from protein, can turn into everything from glutathione, which is your body's own endogenous antioxidant, along with cysteine and methionine, and also can play a role in rebuilding collagen and connective tissue. But, these are just individual amino acids that most people don't know about, that are the result of protein breakdown and metabolism. And all of these individual amino acids also have various kind of influences on the calories out portion, or really, I guess, the calories in too. I guess you could make the case. What's not talked about is also things like the amino acid alanine from protein, which can actually be converted into glucose, believe it or not. Alanine and a couple of other amino acids can be used to produce glucose if you are on a heavily restricted diet and pretty much dying of starvation. In some cases, your muscle tissue can break down into alanine to provide that. But so anyway, all of those things can potentially modify the thermic effect, the amount of calories that you're burning from protein, okay, alone. And that's just protein alone, right? So I didn't want to make this video this complex, but I guess this is how my videos always turn out to be. All right. So then, of course, you have hormones like thyroid hormone and whatnot. And some people have made the case that testosterone, but there's a lot more to it. Hormones can influence the caloric burn, the calories out portion. And then obviously how much you exercise, okay? How much energy you're actually using, you're actually burning, okay? High intensity interval training, aerobic, long steady state, just like jogging, running, even walking for long durations of time. These are all, physical exertion activities that will burn calories. It will be the energy out portion. What about intermittent fasting? There's a lot of people out there who will say that intermittent fasting is some magical fat loss hack because it lowers insulin. Well, the fact is, it is true. Most people who do intermittent fasting, they just cut a lot of calories that they don't recognize they're cutting. And I will say that there's some weird stuff that goes on a lot of times with like low carb diets and stuff, where there's some weird things people experience that aren't explained by this calories in versus calories out model. And so I don't know, I'm not even going to begin to try to explain this, but I will say as my own kind of like case report, this has actually happened. I have body composition scans and chronometer logs to prove it, where I went from a high carb diet eating 3,500 calories a day, lots and lots of rice, but I was eating like half. I was eating only like 120 grams of protein a day. And then I switched to like a carnivore diet where I was eating 4,500 calories a day. I stopped doing so much cardio and I was just doing Olympic weightlifting. And I bumped my protein up from 120 grams a day to 300 to 350 grams on average. That's a lot of protein. And I was getting 4,500 calories, most of it coming from butter and coconut oil and cheese. And I went from 200 pounds, really fluffy. I was around 18% body fat, down to 185 pounds, fluctuating between 182 and 185. Eating like 1,000 more calories and like over double the protein. And my body fat went from 18% at 200 pounds down to around 10 to 12% at 182 to 185 pounds, which is insane. And that happened within a matter of weeks, like 4 weeks or so. I don't know how to explain that, but I've seen a lot of people claiming that the more like butter they eat, the more fat they lose. I'm not here to say some shit like that because I'm a personal trainer and I consider myself a health professional. And I can tell you on a case-by-case basis, I would never, ever in my life like recommend somebody to eat more butter to lose more weight. I think that that's fucking stupid. But I think, and it's like that there's better fucking things to tell people that will actually work, that are time-tested and proven, that are not heavily debated and will absolutely work every single time for every single person. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know about the butter shit, but I'll tell you, calories in versus calories out is the key. And so we want to do things that increase our caloric expenditure. Okay. So again, high intensity interval training, anything that gets the body moving relatively vigorously. You can either do more intensity, so that would mean like, super hard cardio for like less time, like, a 20-minute session of just Tabata, just like hardcore burpees and circuits and stuff. But that takes a toll on the body and requires a pretty brutal adaptation period if you do it too much. But I use that with my clients. We do burpees, we do circuits, we do a variety of like plyometrics, different sprinting type exercises, medicine ball kind of circuits. And then, of course, you can do structured weight training in a high-intensity interval training manner, preferably after you get the strength building or muscle building sets in. I'll talk a little bit more about how muscle plays a role into fat loss and calories in versus calories out here in a bit. Building muscle is actually one of the most important things that you can do for long-term fat loss. And a big problem with a lot of people's long-term fat loss goals is they focus so much on burning calories that they build no muscle because they're just doing a bunch of intervals and stuff. It doesn't really boost health in the way that they think it does. And they don't really focus enough on eating adequate protein or really getting adequate nutrition at all. And protein foods are one of the most potent sources of nutrition you can eat. They fill in a large majority of the nutritional gaps with a couple of exceptions, like, vitamin B1 and folate, for example. Vitamin C, magnesium, but those are also included to an extent. But people neglect muscle building, and that's very important for the long-term fat loss benefits. So I'll just talk about that now, I guess, since we're already talking about it. But there's so much to this. But yeah, so muscle building is important because the more muscle that you have, the more calories your muscle is going to burn. Like, so fat, what you have to understand is fat tissue is biologically living tissue that requires calories to survive. So when you eat food, when you eat calories, those calories are going to keep fat alive, or they're going to keep muscle alive. Muscle is also biologically living tissue. So fat is biologically living and needs calories, and muscle is biologically living and needs calories. So the goal is to kill the fat by starving the fat of its calorie energy. The more caloric energy that fat is deprived of, the more of a caloric deficit you put yourself in for fat, the more and more that fat is going to die off, basically. So that's a good way of kind of visualizing it for the beginner person, is that fat is like a freaking a pet cockroach. It's like a pest. And in order to get that cockroach to die, you need to cut off its supply of food. And whatever, it's going to starve to death. Muscle tissue is also biologically living tissue, okay? And so think of muscle tissue as your pet dog. This is a stupid analogy, but fuck it, we're going with it. You want to starve the cockroach. You want to starve your body fat, and you want to build muscle tissue, build that pet dog, so that eventually all of the food that you eat is going to go towards sustaining that muscle tissue. Forget the pet dog analogy. You need to starve the fat and build muscle tissue. The thing is, building muscle takes time. In your first year of training, the average trainee is going to be able to gain anywhere from, at the very, very low end, 10 pounds of muscle in the first year, all the way up to about 30 pounds in the first year for somebody with absolute freak genetics. I have had clients, and again, this is based on body fat scans, which have a pretty high percentage of error, just like most tracking tools like heart rate monitors and stuff like that. But I had one client, I've had a couple clients like this, but one of them in particular who still trains me to this day. He came in, he was like 149 pounds, and within a matter of something like 6 months, he went from 149 pounds to 169 pounds, and he dropped 7% body fat in that time. So he gained 20 pounds and dropped 7% body fat, according to the body fat scan tools that we had. And he looked a little bit buffer and definitely looked leaner and had more definition. The thing is, fat tissue is typically more apparent than muscle tissue for whatever reason. So a lot of people, they're on a fat loss journey and they notice that their weight stays the same. Like they'll reach a period. If you're eating enough protein and you're doing weight training, you'll notice in the mirror you're getting leaner. You may not notice too much muscle gain. Maybe you'll notice your arms got a little bit bigger or something, but you just notice you're getting leaner. But you're either staying the same weight on the scale, or sometimes you're increasing weight, and that scares people. For me, this whole calories in versus calories out, and if it fits your macros thing, the mainstream kind of weight loss paradigm, they focus too much on weight loss and not enough on fat loss. And they think that they're the same thing, and they'll justify it and insist that if you're losing weight, you're losing fat. The point is, though, it is like if you're doing everything right, you're going to hit a point where the weight on the scale is kind of just like, it's not a good determinant of progress. And with my clients, I have time and time again seen them get leaner and leaner, and the body fat scans say that they're losing body fat, but they're increasing their weight. But the number one problem a lot of people actually have is that they're scared of gaining weight on the scale. And a lot of times these are people that are used to just tracking everything. They're used to restrictive paradigms where they're starving themselves, and they are like just weighing themselves too often. Or maybe they're not even weighing themselves anymore, but they're just like so obsessed with their weight that they don't want to eat too much. So they might eat like a 12-ounce steak, and then like that's all their protein intake for the day. And they might eat vegetables with olive oil and all this stuff, and then they wonder why they're not getting the results that they want. And it's like, well, you ate that 12-ounce steak. That might be like 80 grams of protein. That's not nearly enough. Remember, more protein generally means more caloric burn, and it also means more muscle gain. And more muscle gain means that you're burning more calories, because remember, muscle is biologically active tissue that requires calories to survive. So the more muscle tissue you have, the more food you can eat without noticing fat gain. And this is very common in women where they just don't want to get fat, so they'll eat like a can of tuna a day, and they notice their sleep goes to shit, their mood goes to shit, their energy goes to shit, and they start feeling more and more stressed out. And I try to explain to them, and then also their performance in the gym goes down. They don't even have any motivation anymore, and they're looking flabbier and flabbier. Even though sometimes they'll be losing weight on the scale, but they'll be getting flabbier. And sometimes they won't even lose weight. They'll hit a plateau really fast because they cut way too many calories and all they're eating is like a can of tuna. And this is common. And the thing is, the reality is, if you cut too many calories too quickly, that will work really, really fast for a lot of people. You'll notice rapid fat loss if you do those kind of crash diets, but it will catch up with you. There is a reason why there are so many like doctors that specialize in weight loss that will do structured kind of like 200 to 400 calorie deficits, and they'll do small increments over time to track your progress. And it's because you can't just like stop eating. Like you can, but that's not a sustainable way for progress. But anyway, it's you don't really need that. Like it's pretty simple. Eat adequate protein and just cut out the added carbohydrates you don't need and the added fats. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to like restricting carbs is not the goal here. It's restricting the unnecessary calories that you don't need. In general, that means butter, that means olive oil, that means the extra rice you get with your fajitas, and maybe the tortilla chips, because they're not just high in carbs, they're also high in fat because they fry it in oil. One thing that I can assure everybody is that you don't need to be vegan to lose weight. You don't need to be keto to lose weight, and you don't need to be carnivore to lose weight, okay? So first of all, being vegan to lose weight is to me stupid as fuck. Let me explain. You can most definitely lose weight as a vegan, but just being vegan does not induce weight loss. Because being vegan has nothing to do with macronutrients or the quality or the quantity of food you're eating. However, if you're eating a whole foods vegan diet, that can be a very sustainable and healthy approach to fat loss, because the food you're eating, for one, is extremely high in fiber if it's a whole food vegan diet. And remember, white rice and jasmine rice is not a whole food, okay? And it's definitely not a fat loss food. No matter what diet you follow, jasmine rice and white rice, within the context of people who are not tracking macros, is not a sustainable approach. But if you're eating a high amount of fibrous foods, then you're going to easily, naturally start to eat less kind of like calorically dense foods. That's why fiber is so heavily promoted as a way to increase fat loss, because when people are restricting calories, they get hungry, and it makes it easier to fill your stomach with a bunch of indigestible plant matter, which is fiber. And you can get protein on a vegan diet. It's just that, in order to compensate for the lower leucine content in a lot of these foods and the potential, incomplete proteins, so to speak, all you really need to do as a vegan to get adequate protein, and remember, there's a lot of caveats as far as health is concerned. I'm not saying this is what I would call healthy, and I'm not telling people to do this, but I'm just going to be, for the sake of scientific accuracy here, you could definitely lose body fat and be vegan. And for many people, it's a very easy approach. But for protein intake, you need to compensate for the lower bioavailability, leucine, and incomplete protein, so to speak, by consuming, instead of 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, getting 1.5 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Okay? So if your ideal body weight is 200 pounds, on an animal-based diet, you just get 200 grams of protein. But if your ideal body weight is 200 pounds and you're trying to be vegan, you want to get 300 grams of protein to compensate. It's 1.5 grams per pound. Anyway, that's my take on that. But that also comes with more carbohydrates and a greater consumption of calories, which may or may not be offset by the higher thermic effect of food from the protein. Anyway, so yeah, prioritizing protein first. Like my general recommendation for most of my fat loss clients, right, who are just trying to be healthy and they're just trying to lose body fat and improve their blood markers of health, is eat a lot of lean proteins, okay? And I always recommend animal protein first, right? Number of reasons as to why. Most of it's just that it'll take care of their basic foundation of nutrient needs. And every single one of my clients, they are very satisfied with eating mostly animal protein, okay? So, but typically it's going to be like, a lot of my clients are very wealthy. It's easy for them to afford lean steaks, but some of them are not. So they'll generally get, lean meats, lean steaks, whatever, lean ground beef. And some of the other ones may be lean pork, okay, very lean pork, lean chicken. And then on top of that, we do, I generally tell them, look, if you don't like vegetables, it's not the end of the world if you don't eat them, okay? And I'll be making another video pretty soon explaining my updated stance on polyphenols and whatnot. But in general, there's not really a lot of good scientific evidence that you need vegetables for health. They can help with fat loss, and there might be some potential hormetic effects of these polyphenols. But things like fiber, like lowering cholesterol and stuff like that, to me, I'm not convinced on that. If you really want to lower your LDL cholesterol, if you really think that that's going to be your ticket to preventing heart disease, there are better ways of lowering LDL cholesterol with diet than consuming higher amounts of fiber. Like basically just avoiding saturated fat is going to keep your LDL low. Now, will that prevent heart disease? I don't know. That's debatable. But so anyway, the point is I tell them, look, lean animal proteins is the base of your diet. Get your carbohydrates from whole foods. The most important thing is that they're from whole foods, but preferably from fruit, okay, from low glycemic load fruits, things like berries and stuff. And as long as you're not slamming bananas, you know what I mean? You don't think of juice as a fruit. Obviously, it's not. Then you're good to go. And effortlessly, when they follow a diet that's based on, and I tell them if you're going to eat vegetables, that's good. That's fine. That's going to help you stay satiated, right? And possibly it's going to raise the amount of minerals you get in your diet. Okay. Depending on how you cook them, there's people out there that believe the anti-nutrients are a huge deal and the fiber and this and that is bad, people will say. But for fat loss and general health outcomes, all the evidence points to vegetables leading to better health outcomes. Not that I'm saying that they're necessary based on that data, but there's probably no detriment. So anyway, yeah, non-starchy vegetables, and then if they want to eat some potatoes or sweet potatoes, it's cool. But just try to get the majority of the carbohydrates from fruits and lean meats. And basically, Lauren Cordain's style paleo diet is the basic blueprint. And then if they want to eat some brown rice, some black rice, and stuff like that, as long as it's not pasta or bread, and as long as you're not eating refined carbs, you know what I mean? They eat some quinoa or whatever it is, especially beans. Like, beans are something that, from a fat loss and a metabolic standpoint, as long as you're not intolerant to it, right? You don't have like digestive issues or autoimmune disease. It's an amazing food for fat loss. It's such a low glycemic load food, high in protein, and it's so high in fiber that it's extremely hard for you to like crave junk food when you include a large amount of beans, like beef and bean type of chilies and stuff. As long as the beef is lean, that is like the most satiating and nutrient dense, low glycemic load food that you can eat. That will support your muscle gain goals. It'll support your metabolic health goals as long as it's made with lean beef. It's that's a very good type. And I never tell people to do that, but most of my clients don't eat beans, and I'm just throwing that out there because I want people to know I'm not biased. I'm not like this crazy meat guy, right? Anyway, yeah, so that's the main thing is like whole foods. Remove the exaggerated amount of carbs people eat. Most people eat the biggest problem with people's diets these days is they're snacking all day. And they're eating all these Oreos and these Doritos, and it's really the higher availability of junk foods that's available. So I just have people like remove those completely, stick to just these nourishing foods, and we have them do high intensity interval training. We'll get them on the Concept 2, like the rower, the Aerodyne bikes. We'll do like some kind of like hill sprints. Just depends on the client, obviously. We'll do body weight circuits. I have them do a basic strength program where we're doing like 5 sets of 5 when they're first starting. And then sometimes we'll do like back off sets with 10s. And then a lot of volume and circuits after the basic strength. So depends on like if you're a commercial gym trainer, you're working at like LA Fitness or something like I was for a long time. You only got 30 minutes a session. You have them start with like barbell squats. And I've had everyone barbell squat. I've had old grandmas, old 70-something-year-old men. I've had clients that are in their 50s who had their femur completely like shattered and their ACL torn like a couple years before. We helped them rehab their injuries, got them on the barbell squats. People say heavy barbell squats and heavy lifting is dangerous. Don't listen to these people. They're promoting toxic fear of important exercises that actually promote bone health. Without heavy weight training, no calisthenics or yoga is going to really promote bone health the same way. Trust me. Trust me. The amount of DEXA scans I've seen after my strength training routines after a couple years, pretty crazy how big the joints get. Anyway, start off with like working up to a heavy set of 5 on barbell squat, for example, at the beginning of the session. After we do like a basic kind of like stretching warm up, and I do like stretching because everyone needs that at a basic level. Most people are very inflexible, and I think it is very beneficial, counter to a lot of evidence-based people who say flexibility is not important. Work up to a heavy set of 5 on squats, and then we drop down, get like a couple sets of 8 to 10 maybe. And since we only have like 25 minutes, then we go and we do accessories and we try to get them in a circuit style. So after a squat workout, that's going to look like lunges for high reps, like way across the room and back. And then we might superset that with Romanian deadlifts or something. And that's going to get some extra volume on the lower body to complement the squat workout we just did, build some extra muscle. And at the same time, especially if they're very new, they're unconditioned and sedentary people, they're going to get a pretty good like kind of cardiovascular conditioning response, like a fat burning effect from doing those heavy squats. It's like a very intense workout for a lot of people. And it's going to continue to burn calories like for a long time after the training's done. Their heart's still pounding after that. And immediately we move on to, again, like I said, the lunges for relatively high reps, Romanian deadlifts, typically done in a circuit. And then after that, we might do just some basic conditioning exercise just to keep the fat loss up, which is going to be like burpees, maybe supersetted with some kind of partner-assisted sit-up exercise. Not to say that's a good ab exercise or anything, but when you have 25-minute sessions in a commercial gym, you got to make it work for your client's goals. And I mean, that's covering a lot of bases. You got your basic strength, that's promoting the bone growth, that's promoting muscle gain. It's also getting a pretty good fat loss effect. And then because you're doing it within a 25-minute window, moving on to the lunges, superset with the Romanian deadlifts, you're getting volume in on the to kind of help improve the main lift and the muscle gain in that same area. You're getting a fat loss benefit because you're kind of circuiting it and it's done for higher reps, and muscle gain because it's done for higher reps. You're also getting in extra kind of movement patterns. And then after that, you do the burpees, and you can superset that with like a partner-assisted sit-up and just keep doing that with no rest. As far as the burpees and the sit-ups are concerned, it may not be optimal, but that's one hell of a fat loss workout, as well as getting a really effective muscle gain workout, considering the context of 25-minute sessions. And that's just an example. Now, optimally, what you really want to do is you want to do, especially if you're a beginner, you want to work up to a top set of 5 to 10 reps at an RPE of 8, and then do that same weight that you hit an RPE 8 with for the target rep range for 2 more sets. And then, depending on how you have your split routine, you could either do back off sets or keep doing sets of 5 to 10 with that same weight to reach about 5 sets. Or you could just move on, if you're doing squats, move on to an antagonistic movement pattern like Romanian deadlifts or something of that nature, or just plain out deadlifts, following the same protocol. 5 to 10 reps at an RP of 8 for straight sets, maybe do some back off sets, and then get in some more movement patterns like lunges, step ups, what else? Good mornings maybe, but you should definitely get a credible trainer who knows how to do those. And that's like the strength and muscle gain portion of that session. And then you move on to some kind of high intensity interval training after that. And this is a very good way of doing it, is strength and muscle building first. You start with the Olympic lifting or plyometrics first if you're going to do those. Then the strength, and then muscle building. And the muscle building stuff you can do in a circuit fashion for the sake of time and for the sake of getting an extra kind of like cardiovascular component. Because strength exercises are not good to do in circuits or with low rest periods. And then you can do burpee superset with concept 2 rower, or burpee superset with medicine ball slams, or something like that. 1 minute on, 1 minute off type sprints done for 20 minutes straight, stuff like that. And get a good squat, bench, deadlift, like a good full body strength and muscle building routine done 2 to 3 times a week. Hit every muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. And then on top of that, get some kind of high intensity interval training, maybe 3 times a week. And most importantly, increase your total amount of just physical movement in general. That means walking, that means running, jogging. A really big kind of thing that people miss out on is non-activity exercise thermogenesis or whatever. It's called NEAT. And basically what that is the general amount of calories you burn outside of organized exercise. So if you, for example, have the option of taking the elevator or taking the stairs, if you choose to take the stairs, on a regular basis at the same, building you go every day, that is going to stack up over time. Okay, a lot of people, and I thought about this the other day walking through the parking garage at my school, how many people are out of breath by just walking up 2 levels of stairs. And I was like, bro, people are pathetic and weak. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to begin to tell you how many people I've seen that I've known within my lifetime who get out of breath by just walking up 2 levels of stairs. What in the fuck, man? That's pathetic. Like, if that's you, you need to take the stairs every day just so that you're not, like, so freaking unhealthy. That is so bad. But the big thing is, even if, you don't get out of breath, like, you may not realize it, but every little increase in general movement that you do every day is going to contribute to your calories out. It's going to contribute towards your fat loss. So if you have the option of walking to work instead of taking your car, walk to work. Take your bike. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Okay? Ride your bike and swim across the ocean instead of taking the plane across to another country. You get the picture. Learn how to fly like a bird instead of taking a plane if you're going across the sea. You know what I mean? Like, really, like, swim across the ocean. Don't take a freaking boat. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't go that too. You're not Jack LaLanne, okay? If you don't know who Jack LaLanne is, look up Jack LaLanne. He's a very good example of, like, pristine health and fitness. He really, like, walked the walk or walked his talk, whatever. So again, there's a thermic effect of food, like we mentioned earlier, with protein metabolism. There is, doing more cardio. Obviously, the more you walk and the more you do, just like walking your dog and stuff like that, you're going to be burning calories. Like me moving my hand, this is NEAT. This is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And in caloric deficits, the amount of NEAT that you do during the day goes down. Believe it or not, if you start to eat more calories, studies actually show your NEAT, your NEAT can go up. You can start to just like be more active and energetic. And you eat less calories, your body compensates by not doing all these gestures and things. So that is interesting, right? And that would be, a topic for another time about increasing caloric intake and its relationship to how much energy you have and your mood and stuff, right? So I really don't make it too complicated for people. When you're working with the general population, the thing is, most people, like, in an ideal world, like, everyone's like, oh, just count your calories, and if it fits your macros, lean Norton. But the thing that a lot of these these nutrition experts seem to miss is how many freaking people just simply, they have a hard enough time coming to the gym and committing to that, or eating any kind of structured diet outside of the normal routine at all. Trying to get a client to track their food intake using a nutrient app is a losing battle. And I just don't do it anymore. I've given up on everybody except for those highly motivated clients that might really need it and are willing to do such a thing. Everybody else, I give them that blanket template that will always work at least good enough, right? Lean meats, remove all the added fats, and try to only eat carbs from low glycemic load fruits, and then like beans, nuts and seeds, whole grains if you have to. You know what I mean? But limit those extra carbohydrates. And if you're going to eat something like refined carbish, try to target it around exercise. The thing is, too many people just easily fall off the wagon and just like don't adhere to jack shit at all. And so I over the years, I have been less and less strict with my nutritional paradigm because it just doesn't work for most people. Just giving them super like strict guidelines, it just doesn't work. They'll follow it really good for like a couple weeks, and then they'll ghost you, and they just for some reason have a really weird disconnect. They just can't they just can't choose to do it for some reason. Yeah, so hopefully I covered a lot of the basics. I mean, it's really not that hard. The most important thing I want to get out in this video, though, is that it's nothing mystical or magical or like Illuminati status, right? Like, you have these people who are like, bro, you just gotta eat more butter and, like, keep your insulin low, and it's like that may influence appetite and things, which I didn't even mention. Things like glucagon, not glucagon, but glucagon's important, but leptin and not gliadin. That's the freaking wheat protein, damn it. Leptin and how the fuck did I forget the other hunger hormone? Fuck. Whatever. Leptin and then the other hunger hormone. It's not glucagon. It's not gliadin. I don't know how I forgot that. I think it's because I've been talking for too long and I'm lacking oxygen. All right, everyone. Now it's going to kill me. Anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah, hopefully y'all understand. And, yeah, roast me down in the comments, Tell me, like, it's either going to be like, no, calories are a load of bullshit. It's all about the butter. You got to eat more butter. You got to, like, keep your insulin low. It's all a lie. The freaking, broccoli world order. They want you to believe that it's calories. Or else it's going to be like the vegans, like, no, like, it's the meat. The meat rots in your intestine and then causes toxins. I've literally had people tell me that the cause of fat gain is a toxic body and you need to detox. They told me if you just eat organic, you will lose weight. It's all the toxic additives, they say, that makes you gain weight. And I'm like, bro, there's nothing I could say to these people. Like, there's no logic that can be spoken to those people. The insulin people are a little bit easier to kind of talk to because at least they're operating within a decent amount of reality. But the damn mucus vegan people, they were already schizophrenic before they found veganism. And then their B12 deficiency and their deficiency in vitamin and DHA and EPA makes them even more like physically schizophrenic now. It's not just a mental disorder. Now they have a physical deficiency that can literally cause psychosis, and it makes it worse and worse. And so that's why raw veganism is such a hard paradigm to get out of. All right, y'all. Have fun.